Let's talk about the future. So there's a huge development that's happening, upwards of $160 million of an expansion of the BeltLine, an expansion of Atlanta Botanical Gardens that is going to hit the intersection of Monroe and Piedmont. Settlers came here and the Walker family purchased Piedmont Park for a whopping $450. And the first Walker cabin was right in the heart of, we would call today, the Active Oval. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of ATL All Things Local. Today, we are going to take a deep dive of Piedmont Park, and we're going to talk about where it started as simple farmland that was bought. In the earliest records of this were that the Walker family purchased this land in 1834, all the way to the future expansion that we are seeing that we're calling the front door of the BeltLine, right here around the corner from where we sit right now. And we kind of sit on the edge of Piedmont Park. So Jeff here is...
Yeah, we're on Dutch Valley Road.
Yeah.
The BeltLine and Piedmont Park run kind of right behind businesses and homes on these streets right here. And it's the unfinished part of the BeltLine, which is interesting because it's kind of near the first part that was finished, but they just haven't been doing anything with it. And I'm assuming that's because of all these infrastructure and sewer issues that we're going to talk about in this show.
Stink stretch. Yeah. So let's start back all the way to 1834. That is, settlers came here and the Walker family purchased Piedmont Park for a whopping $450. It was a forest, and they cut it down by hand and made a farm out of it. And the first Walker cabin was right in the heart of, we would call today, the Active Oval. The Active Oval also is pretty interesting because it hosted the oldest Southern rivalry in college football, which would be Auburn versus Georgia. That was the first game between those two teams, was played right there at the Active Oval. It was also home to Piedmont Driving Club.
Yeah, and we got to talk about that.
Yeah. So
Piedmont Driving Club. Interesting place. Why do they call it a driving club?
Well, it's a track.
Right?
The oval, right?
But they didn't drive cars on it, did they?
I mean, I think it's a racing track for horses, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think when we think about being on a horse, we don't think about driving, but that is the verb, I believe, that they used back then. On a horse with a carriage, you were driving it.
I don't know.
And then you could also think it's kind of like a country club, and you would think maybe driving a golf ball, but they don't have a golf course either, except it's way outside of town.
That's what I initially thought it was when I first learned about the driving club.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, they had a driving range there. Cool.
But it's a really small piece of land to occupy such a significant club in the city's history.
Yeah. And before this episode, we were looking at the next phase of that Active Oval, and that was the Cotton States International Exposition. And the amount of buildings that used to live in Piedmont Park that they built, that were built to really last a short while, is crazy. And you look at these pictures and they look like really beautiful buildings.
Yeah, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see some images of those right now. They're significant. They don't look like 5-year temporary buildings.
Yeah.
It's just, one of many things in Atlanta that you're like, I can't believe they tore that down.
Right. And to bring up timeline here, so 1834, Walkers owned it. The first the Cotton States International Exposition, that's 1895. And I think too, it's a big movement. It's Atlanta's World Fair. It's 800,000 attendants, 6,000 exhibits. It lasts 100 days. And
it was a big deal. Like presidents showed up and they made like the first telephone calls from an event or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. There was a lot of stuff. And then Booker T. Washington's famous speech,
Atlanta Compromise by Booker T. Washington, was delivered during the Cotton States and International Exposition. And then also two very familiar pieces of Piedmont Park were initially expanded and put in place, and that would be Lake Clairemere and the Tropical Gardens, which are now today Atlanta Botanical Gardens.
Mm-hmm. And the Botanical Gardens really got started in earnest in the 70s, I believe. Really got fancy in the 90s when they put in that big elevated walkway, and I think that's when the whole orchid building was done and all of that. It's a really nice place now.
Yeah, and that might have to do a little bit about the conservancy that took over and partnered with the city to kind of help bring in and raise money and develop more of the commercial side of Piedmont Park. But yeah, so the city park was actually bought in 1904 Is it 1904 or 1905? One of those years.
I was convinced it was 1910, but I think 1904 might be true too.
Okay, well,
sometime way back when.
Yeah, early times around there, and you got to think that really 1904. Okay, we did confirm that. So you have to think they apparently had opportunities to buy it a couple of times before, but they denied it because it was too far away from the city.
Which is funny to think about.
Very funny to think about.
Yeah.
But today,
if you think if you were going to walk from there to downtown, it would not be an easy walk.
That's true. That's true.
But we don't think about things like that.
No, we don't. But so they hired the gold standard for landscape architecture, which would be the Olmsted firm. Tell us a little bit about how that name might sound familiar.
Well, I believe that's a name synonymous with Central Park.
Yes.
As well as the Olmsted Linear Park along Ponce de Leon Avenue here. What other ways is the Olmsted name famous, Adam?
Well, I think of Druid Hills, right? Because that was his last project. But Olmsted was a famous landscape architect who had designed many, highly sought after, many different parks throughout the nation. And then also his brothers kind of carried his legacy on and ran the firm after that. Well, they were hired by the city of Atlanta to design and redesign after the exposition had kind of tailed off. And in 1912, they started designing this and eventually came out with a plan. And that plan was to kind of create a restful retreat away from the city. Something that was very progressive for its time, and it was very health-based. So the idea of it was that it would have these rolling paths and rolling meadows, different layered views, not going to be like the 90-degree angles that you would be used to. And it's pretty easy to see that as you walk through Piedmont Park, that there is, a lot of different focal points that show a really pretty area of the city and of the park itself.
It makes you really wish that we could still drive through there. The streets have these big, wide, sweeping turns. Like Adam said, there are no right angles, lots of triangle kind of intersections where you don't really have to make a turn. You're just kind of veering one way or the other. It's great on a bicycle now, but it sure would have been fun to drive through there to get to Midtown. I'm curious what that would have been like. Obviously, as Atlanta grew, they had to shut that down.
Yes, and as someone who runs through the park frequently, I'm glad they did.
Yeah.
Roads aren't that wide, right?
And it reminds me a lot of the neighboring neighborhood of Ansley Park, the first automobile suburb. So it really feels like it fits there. And if you look at the Olmsted Park, linear park on Ponce, it really made what could have been a very bland, generic thoroughfare leaving Atlanta to the east and turned it into something that's enjoyable to drive. It's enjoyable to kind of live on because you don't really live on the street. You live on either North Ponce, South Ponce, something that's away from the main thoroughfare. And between you and the thoroughfare is a really beautiful park.
It is.
And so that, I wish we had more of that. I think I'm glad it still exists. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, me too. I drive up and down it to get home every day. And it is very beautiful. And the estates that sit up on the hill behind them that kind of start Druid Hills. Beautiful
homes.
Yeah. Okay. So after they started developing it and the plan took place in 1912, there were some buildings that were also erected after they had torn down portions of the Cotton States initial build. And there were a lot of buildings, and we're going to show you pictures of them because we've been able to kind of dig these up with the help of
our studio.
He calls them Peanut. I call them Ancient Atlanta.
Ancient Atlanta.
So
Ancient Atlanta's got us.
We even did an overlay before the show that was really interesting. But there's the Visitor Center was built in 1910. Bathhouse Evolution, which has gone through a few phases. The tennis courts were also built relatively early on, and then there was an East Side extension, the Park Drive Bridge, that was built to open it up to the neighborhood. And then, 1970s.
That bridge now goes right over the BeltLine. So that bridge was over a train track.
Right.
Which at some point, Piedmont Park had trains running through it.
Wild to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And then fast forward to 1976, Atlanta Botanical Gardens
Right.
That's their first lease.
That, hey, you got to start somewhere.
You have to start somewhere.
And my understanding is that the Botanical Garden started really as just a group of neighbors that wanted to do something nice. What do you know about the beginnings of the Botanical Gardens, Adam?
Well, I was not born yet, so I had no idea what was happening. But, I think it has something to do with the humble beginning. I mean, it seemed like a community affair. It wasn't until the 80s and the 2000s that they really started to develop more of the botanical gardens. You and I kind of talked about this a little bit. That's kind of when Piedmont Park, the Conservancy stepped in and partnered with the city of Atlanta in '89 until present. And since then, they have really done a really good job of partnering the commercial side with the beautiful public space that is Piedmont Park. And they've raised over $60 million within those years. They host large events throughout the year that bring in a ton of revenue for the city. And so,
and you can't live or work here in this neighborhood without knowing that the holidays are here. Sitting in our residence upstairs, all the doors and windows closed, you can hear the music that they're playing to get people to come see the holiday lights.
I love that light show. Where what is it called? The something forest?
I'm not sure what they call it.
Yeah.
But it's different music every year.
Yeah, and it's on the Sky Bridge as you cross through the Atlanta Botanical Gardens, and they queue up this light show that kind of rains down through the middle of the Sky Bridge, and it's
all the trees are well lit.
Yeah, and it's synced with the music. I mean, you could just sit there and
it's a fun holiday adventure to go.
It would be a lot more fun with mushrooms.
Well, I think that's not uncommon there.
Probably not. Yeah, but much like the humble beginnings, yes, it was a very Atlanta Botanical Gardens
started. They had some controversy when they built that Sky Bridge. I think it was in the 90s that it collapsed when it was being built.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Several people unfortunately lost their lives that were working on it. It's such a beautiful thing, and it's such a sad story of how it got to be there.
Yes, well,
and these days you don't think about people losing their lives building things. It wasn't uncommon 100 years ago, but now it's pretty shocking when you hear about that.
Yes, as a son of someone who used to build bridges, he tells me all the time about how probably around that era,
dangerous
it was. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so surrounding neighborhoods, you've got Ansley Park, Virginia Highland, Morningside, Lenox Park.
Mm-hmm. And nobody knows where Lenox Park is.
Well, are we sitting in Lenox Park?
We are.
Yeah, technically.
Morningside, Lenox Park. So they kind of joined with Morningside for their neighborhood association. But if you tell somebody to point out Lenox Park on the map, they'll probably point to Lenox Mall.
Yes. Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the future. So there is a huge development that's happening, upwards of $160 million of an expansion of the BeltLine, an expansion of Atlanta Botanical Gardens that is going to hit the intersection of Monroe and Piedmont.
Yep.
And you told me a little bit about kind of them extending the trails and stuff. Dive into that a little bit.
There's quite a bit going on. That northeast part of the park that's really close to where we're sitting now, directly across Piedmont Road from Ansley Mall and adjacent to the former rail line, which is now the BeltLine that crosses under Piedmont right there. And that the section now has a couple of restaurants, a gas station, two-story commercial building, which most of the tenants have fled because it's about to be razed. And that entire intersection, with the exception of the 5-year-old building that was just built that actually houses the Piedmont Park Conservancy and a couple of other businesses, that will stay, but everything else is being torn down. And that will become this grand entrance to the park. We currently have the end of 14th Street is right where the big sign for the Cotton States Expo is. Coming down the stairs onto the active oval is pretty much the entrance I think of that exists.
Yeah, me too. I did too.
Mm-hmm. There's also the one closer to the restaurants and everything. I get
where
kind
Park
of between
Tavern
14th and 10th. No, it's still on Piedmont.
Oh, yes. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, kind of where
Grady is.
And all of it. Yeah.
Or not Grady, excuse me. Where Midtown High.
A little further. We're talking about different places.
Oh, maybe.
But this is going to be a real grand entrance with big walkways, and there's already a part of Piedmont Park that's really underutilized right there. what do they call that? It's not the meadow. It will be called the Commons. And that's basically the part of Piedmont Park that is right at Monroe and Piedmont. There will be rock climbing. What did you call them? Rock climbing hills? For
I called them play mounds.
Mounds.
Yeah.
They're actually going to have walking trails by Clear Creek, which is a really interesting place. If you've ever stopped to look, if you're walking over there, bunch of huge pieces of rock, granite that kind of form the foundation of this creek that runs through there. Ironically, it's called Clear Creek. And if you walk through there, you'll see signs warning you that it's anything but clear.
Well, that's a good segue. So tell me why it is ironic that you would call that Clear Creek.
Well, this is could be argued the epicenter of Atlanta versus the EPA.
There's been many Atlanta versus the EPA, I would assume. But yes, the city got in trouble for dumping sewage and waste into Piedmont Park directly.
To be fair, there weren't city employees taking 50-gallon drums of sewage and pouring it into the Chattahoochee. I mean, maybe somebody did at one point. We're not seeing that today. What really is happening is that when it rains and the storm drains fill up, which are also the sewage drains, then they overflow into the local creeks, which isn't great. But when you walk through what I call the stink stretch, unfinished portion of the BeltLine through Piedmont Park, especially if the weather's just right, you'll get a real good whiff of what's going on. And currently there are about 100 6-foot diameter pipes that are probably 50 feet long that are sitting behind our office on a portion of Piedmont Park right next to the BeltLine, which I'm assuming are part of this Piedmont Park expansion plan, because I'm also assuming that's why that portion of the BeltLine hasn't been finished. I think they're going to do some infrastructure work there.
Yeah, and largely put because of underinvestment and the direct consequence of the federal consent decree that was issued in the 1990s was that they mandated the city to fix all of these overflowing water systems. There was a study done, I think in 2023 or 2024, maybe latter, because of the years. But if they kept the same pace to that they're currently under for replacing the infrastructure, it came out to a calculation.
It'll be done pretty quickly, right?
It was a calculation of like 536 years or 63 years or something like that. A long time to be able to fully replace all of that infrastructure with the sewer systems. And then
we're just biding our time until the technology exists to just erase the sewage.
Yeah, and the fines that the EPA was apparently putting on them was astronomically
They
large.
were significant, but the problem was that it was cheaper to pay the fines than to pay to fix the entire system,
which is wild.
The amount of investment that would need to go. We're talking in the billions of dollars,
right?
And you've also got a city that's growing, increasing its revenue in that way. And every time you add a new subdivision, you need more water, more power, more all of this. So just as the city stands right now, there are billions of dollars worth of investment that need to happen just to get what we've got already, and we're still growing.
Yes.
So you can see where some of these problems come in.
Yeah.
You've got different forces pulling different directions. But it is a well-known situation, well-known issue. It is being addressed to some extent. And it's a shame that it's all happening right in the middle of our favorite in-town park.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the beautiful things about the park again and get away from
We didn't talk about the playscapes.
Oh, well, I love playscapes.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah. That's a big thing.
Yeah, Noguchi, a famous artist, and helped design these playscapes, and they're really beautiful playgrounds, right?
Yeah, and you'll see write-ups about that in things that aren't Atlanta specific.
Right.
Like an international magazine about design, you'll come across these Noguchi playscapes, and there's the one in Piedmont Park, and it's really cool.
Yeah, and they do have a modern playground, and they've got exercise equipment, but these will always probably be preserved as long as they will stand, I would imagine.
And for those of you that haven't seen it, they have swings and things like that, but they're also steel and concrete and really really nice, well-formed, interesting concrete structures.
Yeah, very, very clean, simple, but beautiful. And then the other side of this is, so all of this sewage runoff that you talk about sits kind of right under where we like to have a lot of the festivals here in Piedmont Park. Some of these festivals date back 80 years, the Dogwood Festival being the oldest one. And this is an artist market festival. It's a celebration of the dogwood trees in bloom throughout Piedmont Park.
If you want to be around a lot of people, go see the Dogwood Festival.
Yes, yes. And then it also is the celebration of the finish line for the Peachtree Road Race that happens on the 4th of July here.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. I did my first Peachtree Road Race this past year, and it was brutally hot.
Yeah, the reason people go out to run 6 miles on the 4th of July, I've never heard a good one.
Well, so that you can drink plenty of beer and eat hot dogs and burgers and be America for the rest of the day.
America.
But
so that area, what do they call it now? The Meadow?
The Meadow.
Before the Olympics in the 80s, into the 90s, that looked like a miniature version of what you see in the movies in Los Angeles when they're in the big storm drains and they're driving the cars and all of that. There was a smaller scale version of that cut directly through that entire meadow. And I'm assuming now it's under the grass there.
I guess so. Yeah. Filled in with dirt and whatever else, but maybe there's a drain down there somewhere.
Yeah,
or maybe
one of the many things that got fixed before the Olympics.
Maybe they'll put some of these bigger drains behind your place
maybe
over there.
Yeah.
But so also on top of that, there's Music Midtown, right? That's a big event that happens right there in Piedmont Park.
It's a mega event. And I think that's kind of something that's interesting. I don't know that many city parks do this with the Piedmont Park Conservancy and the city of Atlanta and then the Botanical Garden, and they're all generating revenue.
They are.
In some way. And like Music Midtown, I don't know how many people show up. Those tickets aren't cheap. Just tickets alone, it's a bunch of revenue.
I want to say I had a 2-day pass and I had a 1-day pass and it was $200. And it's the 3-day pass, I didn't get the tattoo. The first year you could have gotten a tattoo and you get lifetime free tickets. And
that's funny.
I didn't get that. Or maybe it was one designated year. I don't know if it was the first year or not. They also have the Green Market, which is their local farmers market. And then there's also, speaking of generating revenue, there are a few places that you can rent there. The Greystone Building, which is an event venue. It's managed by the Conservancy.
Which feels like the pool house to the public pool that's there.
Right. And it's originally built in 26. And it was the park's stone bathhouse. Originally, and then it had kind of changed. And
why does a city build a bathhouse? Does that just mean it's where people went to swim in Lake Clairemere?
Well, yeah. So after you swim in the lake, you've got all the sewage water.
So you got to clean it.
You got to clean it off, obviously. So we did talk about the expansion of Lake Clairemere. That was 11.5-acre lake that sits in the middle of it.
For you anglers out there, you can fish in Piedmont Park legally. It's catch and release.
Catch and release. You can't keep the fish, but not that you
wouldn't want to.
I don't know that I would eat them. But there's another building. Now I'm blanking. Is it Magnolia Hall? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, I know that name.
It's something like that where you can also rent. And then they've got the Promenade, which is the open outdoor space for larger events that you could have tents up.
It's a big moneymaker. I don't know if the city of Atlanta would make more money tax revenue from property taxes if there were just neighborhoods where Piedmont Park is, but maybe not.
Yeah.
It generates a lot of revenue.
And we see weddings out there on Lake Clairemere and then and that venue, the Greystone, I think holds 450 people. The bar minimum for if you want to rent a space is $3,000 just for the bar. So that doesn't include the venue rental. So if that tells you how much you have to pay to get into these are for the not the community nonprofits probably are not renting these, which creates this kind of interesting divide of what is a public space but for profit.
Yeah, that's true. And I think when you look at the amount of impact that something like Music Midtown has on the surrounding neighborhoods, like having 10th Street shut down for a week is not convenient,
No.
And I mean, there's a high school right there. That's how you get in and out of the high school. It is a big deal, not to mention, just all the people parking, a lot of parking and all of that in the surrounding neighborhoods. So, I mean, the neighborhoods have a lot of thoughts about what goes on there. I don't know that they have much sway on stopping them. For example, we've had some other new developments recently the neighbors got really involved with, but it seems like it just happened anyway.
Yeah, and outside of event parking, there is a large parking deck called the Sage Parking Center, and the top 2 or 3 floors are reserved for the Piedmont entrance. That would be for the Botanical Gardens, and then the lower half, I don't know if it's 3, maybe 4 floors or something like that, is off of Monroe, that entrance, and that is reserved for just park visitors. And so there is,
but you will see, like right now during the holidays, people coming to see the lights, they will consider themselves a park visitor, and there'll be a line of cars going out.
Oh, that's
onto
where
Monroe.
That's where, if you live in town, that's where I go, because if you know where to go, you're going to go on the Monroe side rather than wait in that long line that stretches down Piedmont to get into Garden of the Lights. You're going to go around to the backside, right?
Unless it's a really big event, that's a great option.
It is
a really big event, you'll get stuck in a half-mile long
turnaround
cars
that you're going to get turned around. That's right. Okay, so obviously we've talked about pretty much.
Well, we haven't talked about Amsterdam Walk.
Yeah, so there's a large expansion that backs up to the park, kind of on the side that we sit, down Amsterdam Avenue. It's a mixed development.
It's currently it's commercial.
Yeah, it's
got everything from closing attorneys to bars and restaurants to jewelry stores, small cafes for people on the BeltLine,
urban body fitness
places. There was a kind of a famous Latin dance club there, restaurant for a long time,
Local Luna or something like that.
Yep.
One of those.
That was a big deal. But everyone there kind of realizes everything's about to change. And it will turn into a large mixed-use development. It will now not be 10-story tall buildings. It'll be 6 or so. The neighborhood had some impact on the development that was approved. But I think they're going to be something like, 1,200 apartments or 900 parking spaces? I mean, everybody was putting the signs in their yard, all the people that were opposed to it, with all the big numbers that just kind of go in one ear and out the other. For me, it just sounds like a lot. Whatever it is, it's a lot. And I think most of the people were worried about what it would do to the traffic on Monroe.
Yeah, it's already bad enough trying to get in and out of Amsterdam Avenue with the maybe not the most frequented businesses that are back there. You know, you talk about like closing attorneys.
But I mean, it fits with the city's stated goal of higher density, more walkable. You can walk from there relatively quickly to Ansley Mall.
Yeah,
without getting on a single road. Kids could get to and from there safely. Same thing with Pont City Market and the rest of the BeltLine. Really,
that's right.
I mean, it will be one of those places where you don't need a car, but if you need to do something outside of where you live, you probably have to take an Uber because mass transit doesn't work very well here. But it's going to be a big development, and I think we'll continue to see more of that. What's interesting is that you've got these super dense residential areas on the west side of the park already in Midtown. And I think part of the reason why this is maybe a little harder to swallow for the surrounding communities is that this is new. They haven't had that level of density over here.
Yeah. Well, and you look at those neighborhoods, Virginia Highland, Morningside, and Lenox Park, and all of those, and they are higher end neighborhoods, right? Like they don't necessarily want the same density that Midtown has. Awesome. Well, obviously, we love Piedmont Park. We appreciate you guys listening. I, Adam Mincey, work as the lead broker for Mincey Homes. Jeff Goddard and the Jasmine mortgage team here.
We love to help people get money to buy homes.
You get to borrow money, out of the pot.
We lend to anybody.
That's right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Next week, we will have another episode for you for ATL, All Things Local. Make sure to subscribe and follow us. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks, everyone.